Samuel the prophet. We know from other studies, if you've ever looked at the book of Judges, that the book of Judges shows a cycle, if you will, that the Israelites fell into. They would be faithful to God for a while, and then they would fall away from him. A prophet and God would send a nation or a group of people to punish them. After they got tired of being punished, God would send them a prophet, and he would lead them back to the way of the Lord, and they would take care of the people that was punishing them, and they would be faithful for a while. And all through the book of Judges, we see this cycle continually going on. So, looking at it from that aspect, they had not done what they were supposed to do in this land, to take this land that God had promised them. I want to jump through the period of Judges now and through the kingdom of Saul and into the kingdom of David. 2 Chronicles 22:8 says, "But the word of the Lord came to me," and this is to David, saying, "You have shed much blood and have waged great wars. You shall not build a house to my name, because you have shed so much blood before me on the earth." And 2 Samuel 8, verses 1 through 14 has a list of all of these people that David fought with, or many of the people that David fought with. And what we see in that list is him fighting and having to overcome the same people that the Israelites found when they moved into Canaan. We really don't see the land completely at peace until we get to 1 Chronicles 22. "Behold, a son shall be born to you, who shall be a man of rest. I will give him rest from all his surrounding enemies, for his name shall be Solomon. And I will give peace and quiet to Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name. He shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish his royal throne in Israel forever." So that was the things that I looked at when I considered this question: how long did the conquest of Canaan take? I'm open for any other observations at this point. All right, so we'll call that settled for now. All right, let's see, back now to the book. "Give me this mountain." Joshua 14 records Caleb's approach to Joshua to claim his inheritance. "Now therefore, give me this mountain of which the Lord spoke in that day." Very likely, the younger around Caleb were startled at this request. There were so many reasons he should not undertake it. For one thing, he was 85 years old, from verse 10. There were giants and fortified cities, from verse 12. If the spies had felt that the armies of Israel could not conquer them, how could old Caleb propose to do so? But Caleb had a different spirit in him. He offered at least 3 reasons for undertaking the conquest. First, he was still physically strong. "As yet I am as strong this day as on the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and for coming in." Second, Moses swore on that day, saying, "Surely the land where your foot has trodden shall be your inheritance, and your children's forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God. He did not expect it on a silver platter, but if God promised it, it was obtainable." And third, he was not depending on human strength, but on God. This was the plea he had made to the rebellious Israelites at Kadesh back 38 years ago. Well, more than that. "The Lord is with us, do not fear them," from Numbers 14, verses 8 and 9. Now, he gives God the glory for preserving him to his advanced age. "Behold, the Lord has kept me alive," as he said, "these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel wandered in the wilderness, and now here I am this day, 85 years old." And we've got a question about this later. And it was the basis of his confidence that he could take this mountain. "It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said," from verse 12. Okay. Caleb needed help. This mountain was more than one mere peak. It was a mountain range that reached 10 to 12 miles to the south and included the city of Debir. Caleb drove out the three sons of Anak from there, this area around Hebron if we look on our maps. And those sons are named. Then he went up from there to the inhabitants of Debir. When Caleb contemplated taking Debir, or Kirjath Sepher, he apparently felt the need of help. And Caleb said, "He who attacks Kirjath Sepher and takes it, to him will I give Asheth, my daughter, as wife." Joshua 15:16. A man by the name of Othniel volunteered and become Caleb's son-in-law. And yes, this is the same Othniel that we will, when you study the Judges, was the first judge. This seems to add a dimension to Caleb's character. He was humble. It takes a certain amount of humility to admit that we need help. But there comes a time when anyone, especially one who is even approaching the age of 85, needs help. It is pride that keeps us from asking for help when we should. And I insert your name here. I just wrote Al in that blank spot there, and as a lesson for me. And often our delay only increases the load for those who must eventually come to our aid. It is interesting to note that Othniel, who assisted Caleb, eventually became the first judge of Israel in that long line of judges that ended with Samuel. Doubtless, the experience gained under the direction of Caleb and the influence of that good father-in-law helped to prepare him for that more important task of judging Israel. Now, some practical questions. The author asks, is it right to undertake a task that one may not be able to see through to the end? So before answering that question, perhaps we should remember that no one, young or old, can be sure of finishing any task that has begun. Come now, you who say, tomorrow, today or tomorrow, we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, and make a profit. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live and do this or that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Is it wrong to undertake a task for which we may not be adequate? The answer to this one may not be quite so clear. Humility should remind us that any task could prove impossible due to unforeseen complications. If something needs to be done, and there are others better qualified to do it, we should be happy to have them do it. But if no one is available or willing to do it, we should not let it go undone because of our feelings of inadequacy. Faith should give us the courage to proceed. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Is it a sign of weakness to ask for help? Well, laziness perhaps, but not necessarily weakness. Like Caleb, we should be humble enough to acknowledge that a project has become too big for us. Like Caleb, we should then ask for help. And like Caleb, we should offer some reward for those to whom we make our appeal. We may not offer a daughter, but maybe a prayer or a word of encouragement or anything that will show our gratitude. And many times just a simple thank you is enough. And like Othniel, those we recruit may actually benefit from the opportunity to help. Remember the word of the Lord Jesus that he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive, from Acts 20 and verse 35. I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalms 121, verses 1 and 2. Now, Tim, in our class Sunday morning, talked about the lady that he knew and others in the class knew under the heading of this A Modern Caleb. So I'm not going to take the time to go through that again. We're just going to get to the end here and get to our memory work and our questions, unless someone else has something that we would like to say now. Because help like that, you can't put a price tag on. And even though it may inconvenience us, even though it might get us dirty, the benefit that does others is incalculable. And yes, just that. Just that very thing. Stop what you're doing and listen to the other person helps many times. It's not, helping others is not something that we have to have a lot of money to do. We just need to be willing to do it in any way that we can. Anything else? All right. Our memory work. Therefore, we do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. All right. Into our questions then. Number one, when Moses sent out spies as Israel approached Canaan, what discouraging fact did they report on their return? And before we talk about the discouraging fact, what was the encouraging thing that they brought back? It was a land that flowed with milk and honey. It is absolutely everything that God told us that it was going to be. All right. Now, what discouraging fact did they report on their way when they returned? Okay, there's some giants. There's some big guys there. They've got walled cities that are well fortified. You know, they live in the mountains. When we look at them, we're just like grasshoppers to these guys. You know, let's look at Numbers 13. First of all, the good report. Numbers 13:27. And they told him, we came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. They had brought back fruit from the land that had to be borne by two men. Verse 28. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. And the Amalekites dwelt in the land of the Negeb. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwelt in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. And just as we mentioned a few minutes ago, these are going to be the same people that we see King David fighting during his reign, many of them. Okay, and then verse 30, but Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. All right, and we know, says the rest of the story, that they believe these 10 spies. So number two, what did they identify as the most unconquerable part of the land? Okay, the mountainous area. If you look at a topographical map of the land of Canaan, you'll see it from the Mediterranean Sea. You'll see it coming across this plain and then rising up to a mountain range that runs basically the length of the land before it falls off into the Jordan Valley there. And they're saying, you know, this is bad country and it's full of great big guys, so we can't take it. Number three, on what basis did Caleb insist that the Israelites could conquer the land? Okay, God was with them. God has promised us this land. All we've got to do is go take it. Let's look at a couple of verses here. From Joshua 14:18, and we kind of talked about this a little bit with Caleb Sunday morning. But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt, yet I wholly followed the Lord my God. From Numbers 13, verse 30. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. From Numbers 14, starting in verse 6. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes and said to all the congregation of Israel, the land which we passed through to spy out, it is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. So, I'm going to knock that light over yet. So, in addition to these verses, or from these verses, we might say that the basis that Caleb was using was his faith and his confidence in God and his attitude, and that this is ours. God has given it to us. All we've got to do is go and do it, as opposed to the attitude of the 10 spies, or the other 10. All right. Number 4, what did God state as the consequences of Israel's lack of faith? Okay, all those over 20 wouldn't go in. And that's absolutely correct. But if we look at, I'd like to look at a few verses now, and this is gonna be real harsh language, is what God told the Israelites here. And we need to pay attention to this language. This is what God told the Israelites. From Numbers 14, starting in verse 21. But truly as I live, and as all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, none of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and yet have put me to the test these 10 times, and have not obeyed my voice, shall see the land that I swore to give to their fathers, and none of those who despised me shall see it. Drop down to verse 26. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall this wicked congregation grumble against me? I have heard the grumblings of the people of Israel, which they grumbled against me. Say to them, as I live, declares the Lord, what you have said in my hearing I will do to you. Your dead bodies shall fall in this wilderness, and of all your number listed in the census from 20 years old and upwards who have grumbled against me, not one shall come into the land where I swore that I would make you dwell, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. But your little ones, who you said would become a prey, I will bring in, and they shall know the land that you have rejected. But as for you, your dead bodies shall fall in this